All right, welcome to another edition of the Southeastern Sports Network podcast. Robbie Rhodes in here for week 4 of the football season, and it's amazing we're through 3 weeks already, but it's rolling along. First home game for the Lions this weekend at home against Houston Christian. It's now time for our interview segment this week. It's brought to you by Gateway Ford in Ponchatoula. Go check out their inventory, new and pre-owned, at gatewayford.net, and Gateway gives the deal. It's our pleasure to be joined now with our special guest, one of the favorites of Southeastern Line fans all over the place. John Satori joins us. John, it's great to have you on here. John now works for WVLT. Am I right on that, John? In
You got it,
Knoxville,
man.
Tennessee, and just made his way up there after spending a number of well, it was a couple years. John, you were at
Yeah, 2.5. Yeah.
yeah, KTAL in Shreveport, the NBC affiliate there, before making the move to Knoxville. So he went from uh, covering a little bit of the Southland Conference and Northwest Louisiana high school sports, and probably a little Cowboys in there, if I had to guess, in
Yeah.
Shreveport, to now being all balls all the time, I'm guessing, over there in Knoxville. John, thank you for being with us. Alan and Robbie here, and Mark Willoughby as well. Thanks for being with us, man. We really appreciate you coming on.
Man, thank you guys so much, and thank you for the introduction. And yeah, excited to talk lines with you guys. Thank you guys so
Absolutely.
much.
Now, John also runs the State of Southeastern podcast. You can find it on Twitter. It's a really good little podcast which covers a lot of basically all Southeastern stuff, and it's
Mhm.
really developed. John, I got to give you some credit. I went back and watched a couple of them and listened to a couple of them. They've just gotten better. It seems like every one I've listened to. And John is also an alumni. We got a long list for John here and what he has done,
Yeah.
but John is a alumni, I guess you say, of obviously Southeastern, but of the Southeastern Channel. I got to start
Yeah,
doing the big
man.
game. And John,
Yeah.
I got to tell you, the father of the big game is on this. I know our buddy Mark Verbois would say he's the father of the big game, but Alan Waddell took it to a
Oh
different
yeah.
level.
I'd
And
say I'd say the godfather of the big game, Alan Waddell. You can't go through too many archives at the Southeastern Channel without running into Alan.
yeah, he did a great job. Took the show to a whole new level. Um, and I'm giving him props on this because it went to a weekly show and it just took off. I was on the big game with him a little bit. I'll give Chris Coleman some props, Tim Tully. We had a
There you
good crew
go.
when we were there. So I know you had a good crew too. And boy, you guys put a lot of people out into the sports. We kind of doing this Southeastern stuff, but your little crew has a lot of guys guys and girls working actually in the sports broadcasting world for different stations. Talk a bit about that real quick before we go on.
Yeah, man. For people who've been following it, Wesley Boone and I, we worked together in Shreveport. He was there for a number of years. He's now gone into the private sector, and Gabby Cox worked in the industry for a little bit. She's still in Hammond in the private sector. Andrew Scherer, he worked in Biloxi for a little bit. Dylan Domang he's still grinding. He's in Alexandria. Man, we were blessed. We were blessed. We had a great time. Some of the best memories of my life there, and and I think that's why I've stayed interested in Southeastern. I'm living in Tennessee now, but still love the Lions, and so much of it is because of the experiences I had while I was a student there, and a lot of it is you guys were always so good to all of us in that next generation, and I hope that's something that never goes away from that school and from Hammond. And that's a big reason why I wanted to start the podcast, and to give back to the kids who are there now, who are putting on the green and gold, because it's a unique community and they deserve our support. And again, I hope that that's something that we always have at Southeastern, and I think we will.
That's great. You got to cover the Southland a little bit, being in Shreveport, obviously Northwestern State in the backyard a little bit.
Yeah,
Now you're gonna need the Lions to come play a playoff game at UT
I know. I
Chattanooga
was
or East
I was
Tennessee State,
telling
maybe.
Ayla, when Southeastern makes the NCAA tournament and they come up here to play Tennessee, I'll be there. I'll be there. So I need it to happen. I think there's only been one Southeastern versus Tennessee matchup in anything the last like 10 years. It was a soccer match well before I got here. So
Yeah,
again, we got to work on that. We got to work on that scheduling pipeline.
good deal. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Mark and Alan for a couple of questions for you, and we'll talk about anything. We'll talk about what you're doing now, if they want to talk about that, your time with the Lions, or just Lion athletics in general. So, Alan, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, Johnny, thanks for being here. We'll always know you as Johnny Southeastern, you know. But look, man, Robbie just kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit, and it seems like so long ago now that we were doing that when we were students, and then watching you guys do it. And I really envy you guys because y'all chased it, and some of us didn't do that, and I think maybe we had a chance to do that, and I think I tell people all the time, if you want to go into broadcasting, Southeastern's a great platform. I don't think people realize what we have, and I know you're up in Tennessee now, but they just they're remodeling the D. Vickers building right now,
Yeah,
and that's going to be the Robin Roberts Broadcast Center. There's a lot of very talented people that has come out of Southeastern that can do this and do what you're doing. And I just think it's a great program, and I think more people ought to look into it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm the most fortunate person in the world that I'm able to do this at any level. I was telling somebody, I was telling Tiger Edwards, who is very involved with Delta Tau Delta at Southeastern, but he was my mentor when I first got into this in high school. And I just remember telling him at the state championships last year, I would have killed to be on the sidelines at Mandeville High School in high school. And now I'm covering games at Neyland Stadium. It's unreal. And none of this is possible without Southeastern. And that's why I love my university so much. And it's because of the people who believe in students. Everything is student centered in Hammond. I mean, I'm very fortunate for it. And I tell people all the time, there's not a better program if you want to go into television, news, or sports than Southeastern Louisiana University. I mean, the experiences you get, you're not going to get anywhere else. And I've been now in a bunch of different college towns, and I've seen what other colleges have. And it's the best, man.
Well,
it's the best.
I remember Johnny when I was going through it. People always wants to look at like LSU and you look at like Tiger TV. It wasn't even close. I mean, it wasn't even close to what we were doing and the experience that we were getting over here in Hammond. Talk a little bit about the State of Southeastern deal. I know when you launched that, I know you were excited about that. There's had a lot of guests on there. I know you've got a lot of players that's going on there with you. Talk about any feedback you've been getting, and how our listeners and people that are following this podcast, can follow you.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm happy that you guys are getting into it. Because that was the big thing, was I wanted to do it for Southeastern fans. There wasn't that, there was the coaches show, but that was pretty much it. And there wasn't a ton of Southeastern centric media, and I wanted a way to be involved in the university still. And, that was the way to do it, to just share my love for Southeastern athletics with people. And yeah, last year we had a ton of awesome guests: Carlos Washington, Caitlin Ladner, Coach
Carlos Washington got
Bizzardo.
picked up today. I don't know if y'all saw
Yes,
that.
he
Carlos
did.
Washington got picked up on the as a practice squad member for the Falcons. I didn't mean to cut you off, but just
no, you're fine, man. Yeah, and I'm super happy for Carlos, super happy for Cephas, who's with the Bucks practice squad and got some good press this week. Being Justin Fields for scout team, but no, and last year was awesome, and it's a lot. We have a website that I'm trying my best to keep up with, the stateofslu.com. Yeah, it's a labor of love, man. And, we're hoping to pick up the interviews here now. And look, I know you guys understand it too. It's hard to find the time, but you can follow us on Twitter at the State of SLU, on Instagram at the State of SLU. Visit the website, thestateofslu.com. And yeah, podcast comes out every Wednesday. And I tell people a lot, if people weren't listening to it, there'd be no reason to do it. So thank you to everybody who, it's probably a lot of the same people listening to this that's listen to that. But I tell people all the time, thanks. Without Lion Nation, there's no reason to do any of this. So it's all thanks to them.
We'll have to try to connect you with the guys that run LionUpFans.com and see if they can link back.
To
put some.
We can make that happen.
Yeah. Mark, go ahead to Johnny. John, go ahead whenever you're ready, Mark.
Johnny, I appreciate that Tiger Edwards reference earlier.
There you go, man.
My old high school offense coordinator back at Independence High School. So
man,
Coach
that was
Tiger,
when he was first starting out.
That's right. We go way back, and good old Tiger Edwards spent time at Salmon. He's been around, and and had a great career in football and basketball. I was head basketball coach at Independence as well. But
Yes.
glad you got a chance to mention him. Let's talk about these Lions. I know you talk about the podcast Labor of Love. Obviously, you love Southeastern. I think most people know you by your infectious personality on the air, and also your support for the Southeastern athletics program. And I know right now you're Johnny fan when it comes to Southeastern, and you do the news bit. You got to be impartial when you do that. But when it comes to Southeastern, I know you're Lion through and through. But let's talk about this program, specifically the football program. We'll talk about all the programs, but what do you see from afar? I know it's tough for you, but just give us your impression so far.
Man, these last couple of years have been this non-conference slate, and this was the toughest one without a doubt. I think of the Selfo era.
Wait till next year.
What is next year? Remind me, Alan.
South Dakota State at home, Eastern Washington at home, on the road at Tarleton.
Tulane,
I think we got Tulane and Southern Miss.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah, a little cupcake schedule next year.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a murderer's row. And I think right now there's a bit of an identity crisis with the quarterback situation, just because, and I was saying it earlier, throughout the two quarterback system, going back to Cole and Cephas in that 2019 year, Cole was the goal line guy. He was the third and short, fourth and short guy. And then Cephas kind of took that over, even though he was the starter. You had Eli, and Eli was the passer. Cephas was the runner. Zach Clement is a fantastic athlete, but we're asking him to throw more than we have the running quarterback. It seems like, they like what they've got in Zach. I really like Zach's game. I love his skill set. I think he's one of the best athletes in the conference. But there's not that true two quarterback system now. Now it's two quarterbacks who you're asking to do everything, playing at the same time. And I don't know and look, Coach Selfo, every time I've doubted him, he's proved me wrong in his now 5-6 years. Every single time he's proved everybody wrong. And so, look, he's probably going to do it again. But I feel like at some point there's going to have to be that, at least with this room, you got to go with one and see what you got. Because right now, the pass game, it has not been there. Got going a little bit against South Al, but it has not been there to where it needs to be if this team wants to make a playoff run.
Well, I think we have some very strong opinions on that, and we'll get to it a little bit later in the show. And I think you touched on some of the things I think are the issues right now, and something's got to improve in that department, for this team going forward. Because we talked about the schedule stuff so far. You got HCU this weekend. That should be, we should be able to take care of that one. But then you got a good Tarleton team coming in, and then you got to go to UIW right after that. Your sixth game in a row versus a team that's coming off an open date and a pretty easy layup coming up this weekend for them. So that's going to make or break the next 3 weeks, whether you make the playoffs or not. So I agree with that. But and I know obviously football is what we're talking about this time of year, but I know you love every sport at Southeastern. I know we see you everywhere. I mean, we saw you in Lake Charles last year covering the women's conference tournament, and just first of all, talk about just the entire what you see in this program or JRT, this whole entire athletic department.
Yeah,
and, where do you see that going? Just the overall state of things, state of Southeastern.
There you go, a little name drop, man. Look, I think this is just first off, if you're not following what Coach Kiefer has put together this year, I think this is on paper his best roster yet. There was a lot of question marks going into last year, and the portal did not work out last year for this team. But this year, the guys that they've brought in through the portal are, they're proven. They're proven guys. I think this is a team that you need to keep your eye on once basketball season hits. Obviously, volleyball, they got that big win over LSU last week. That team, it's kind of conference championship or bust. Then obviously, a big reason why I love the women's basketball program is because of, and again, it goes back to the relationships that you build when you are in Hammond. And Coach Gazzardo treated me like a professional before I was one. And so it couldn't happen to a better group. What they went through last year couldn't happen to more deserving players, and can't wait to see what they put together this year. Obviously, softball had that huge year. And look, new era for baseball with Coach Barbier, brought over a lot of the talent that he had at Northwestern State, and excited to see what happens there. You're not going to, if you haven't met Coach Barbier, you're gonna really enjoy him. Really good guy, and hopefully puts Southeastern baseball back in the NCAA tournament.
Well, John, kind of an interesting tie between all of this is you spent those last couple of years in Shreveport,
right?
Really, covered a lot of Northwestern.
Yeah,
and it feels like it's been like a Northwestern move south for us here. You just talked about Zachary Clement, playing a couple of years at Northwestern, and then obviously Coach Barbier coming down. You probably know these guys as well as any of us do.
Well, and that's what was cool about Zachary getting there was, I've said it a few times. I think Zachary Clement is a quarterback built for a Greg Stevens offense, and what his skill set is. He's an incredible athlete, gets the ball out quick, and I'm excited to see how he progresses throughout the rest of the year. He's had his moments. He had him against South Alabama, but then. Like you said, Coach Barbier, I think that shocked a lot of people, but he's a guy who understands Louisiana recruiting and also does a good job recruiting Texas as well. Got to know a lot of those guys, and I'm excited to see what they do in Hammond. Obviously, rooting for them in the green and gold.
Can't beat them, join them maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
Low below.
And also, man, what do you guys think? Look, there's two guys who have just stood out to me so far. Harlan Dixon is an absolute just game changer, man. He reminds me a little bit of Morgan Ellison. I know things with Morgan didn't go as well as we had hoped, but reminds me a little bit of him just with how great an athlete he is. And then Bauer Sharp, man, comes in as a quarterback, and he is another one that if you let him get going, I don't want to be in his way.
He's got to touch the ball more. And I know that's what we're going to talk about.
100%.
He's got to touch the ball more.
He does, man. And there was that one play against Mississippi State that I just fell in love with, that direct snap to him. I'm telling, man, you give him 3rd and goal. You line him up. He already knows how to take snaps as a former quarterback. I would love to see that more as the season progresses.
We're going to be discussed.
We talked about that, a little bit. That's we kind of feel like, he could be the Taysom Hill, what we're doing down here, because, you talked about how we don't really have the quarterback this year that the skill set is, hey, I'm a big, powerful, I'm a 3rd and 1, I'm going to get it every time. I'd like to know what the percentages of that we have been on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 over the last 4 years. It's incredible. You look back at it, maybe Bauer's that answer, and we haven't seen that yet.
100%.
Jacob Logan, another guy that played up at Northwestern, is that right?
That's true. Yeah. So Jacob, I didn't get to cover Jacob. Jacob got hurt before I really got to cover him. And then he entered the portal. So I don't have too much familiarity with Jacob, but Harlan Dixon was at Louisiana Tech while I was there. So
that's right. Yeah, you covered the Tech.
Yeah, and so he got into games as a freshman. I remember covering the bowl game when he was a freshman. He got on the field at the FBS level, and look, he's already had a really good start to his career. But he's another one. You get him out in open space, he's extremely fun to watch.
We talk about improving the facilities at Southeastern all the time, and where Southeastern has to get to. And you mentioned it there, so I want to ask a question. I know we're centered around the lines a lot here, but you covered Louisiana Tech a little bit. Mm-hmm. Talk about what the people there and because we went there in 2021, and we were all, I think all three of us, I think you guys were just blown away at their football facility and what it's become. Talk about those people there and kind of how they have, in your mind, covering that team a little bit, have really bought in and tried to say facilities matter, and how that can convert to what the Lions need to do facilities wise.
I think the thing that Louisiana Tech does so well is make it feel almost bigger than it is. Because at the end of the day, Louisiana Tech is a group of 5 team, but the way that they handle media, the way that they, handle social media, their facilities, everything is very uniform. They just do a really good job, and they always make sure you're talking about them. Anytime anything happens, they're informing someone. And I think that they do a great job of that. They're extremely professional, and they treat everyone with respect. And I think that's the thing that made covering Louisiana Tech so enjoyable, was just it always was just so well done. And I think that it was evident, we brought a lot of fans Southeastern that game. We sold we packed our section pretty well. And that was just such a fun atmosphere. They do a great job with the game day atmosphere. And again, they make it something that everyone wants to be a part of. And I think that, Southeastern is doing the best they can with it. We're in a weird spot, man. If people aren't familiar with Shreveport, Ruston and Shreveport's your big city. Hammond's, Shreveport is New Orleans or Baton Rouge. You're not going to beat LSU. You're just not. And I wish that wasn't the case, but it is, And so I think we're doing the best we can. And I think that success, people want to be around success. Obviously, we've had it. And I remember seeing it, the playoff games the last few years, the amount of people who have been there, and it's gotten better and better. But yeah, and also, look, there's more money in FBS football than there is FCS football. That's a big reason why Louisiana Tech has the facilities they do too, but they've got excellent buy-in from everybody.
I remember walking out of there and saying, man, you gotta tell you what they do up here. Details matter. Small
1,000%.
Details matter.
And and it's because you've got buy-in from everyone there, and I'm excited to see, Dr. Wainwright. He seems to be completely bought in, man. And I love the job that he's done. Just getting his face out there for especially alumni. Like I've never met him, but he's done a great job at getting his name out there and saying, "Oh, I'm the president of this university. I'm going to travel to Spokane to watch our football team." So I've really enjoyed that.
And we were just with him in Spokane, and I tell you, he gets it, and he took notes.
He had a notebook.
He had a notebook.
That's awesome.
I'll tell you what Eastern Washington did. They do a freshman run. So they come on the field, first home game of the year. They run all the freshmen. They probably had 1,000, 1,200 freshmen run on the field. So we're about to get on a plane after the game, and I looked at him. I said, "Did you see the freshman run?" He goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Already taking notes. It's already been addressed." He goes, "I don't know if it'll happen this week." He said, "But it's going to happen." So he's on top of everything. He's if you watch his social media, every time an athlete gets an honor, he responds. Anything that's positive in the Southeastern community, he is on top of it. So he is aware. And I think you're going to see a lot of things change at the upper level of administration when it comes to athletics, because he believes in the entire university as a whole, the collective, all pulling together. They all anything athletics is going to benefit the entirety of Southeastern, and that's what he's all about.
And, Mark, we've said that for years.
Yeah.
We've said that for years. Is that athletics is obviously there's a lot that goes on with athletics, but it's really the strongest marketing department of your university. And I think Dr. Wainwright really understands that. Some of the conversations I've had with him, and I think that you're going to see some things change for the good and for the better, because he gets the big picture. And I think John hit the nail on the head with that. Again, like he said, he had never met him. He's an alumni. He's in Knoxville. He knows who Dr. Wainwright is, and has seen his touch already.
And I'll bet you Dr. Wainwright knows who John Sartori is too.
There's no reason.
Everybody knows that.
That's how connected he is. And I tell you what, John, anybody sees your outtakes that you post on Twitter from time to time. They're a lot of fun to watch.
John, my favorite one was the Mardi Gras. Was it
the
parade?
Yeah, man.
The Christmas parade.
Christmas parade.
That is a greatest hits. That is a greatest hits. Yeah, it's somewhere, man.
You had
somewhere.
The moon pies.
Oh yeah. Now I showed that to somebody here in Knoxville. Moon pies actually are made in Chattanooga. So I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer to the Holy Grail there. But yeah,
Johnny, when you talk about people being all bought in, were you still a student for the Nichols game in 2019 in football, or had you moved on to Shreveport by then?
2019. I was still Yeah, I was still there. Was that the fumble?
Yes, the
Yeah,
fumble.
what I'm saying is like that's the game to me that stands out in my mind forever.
Oh
It's like
man,
that
yes.
that was the best. I've done a lot of line games on the road
What?
and at
But
home, but
what was the reason why? I mean, yeah, because I remember it was so crowded. But what did like how
Playing
did
for the
that?
conference
It was
championship.
it
playing
was
for
an
the
That's
conference.
outright
what it was.
The winner wins
Yeah.
his outright
outright conference
championship.
championship.
And
It was a playoff game.
that night
basically.
always stood with me to say like, man, it's out there. We just got to go get it,
Yeah.
you know.
Exactly.
And when you talk about being all bought in, that just rings in my head immediately is like, hey, look, these people are out there. You just got to go get them. And
Yeah, and I think that we've done a really good job, capitalizing on the success. And because we easily could have just, said, that's fine. But I think we've done a much better job at getting the name out there. And I think the biggest thing for me was, and I don't know if you guys remember it, but Central Arkansas, and this is me being just a Southeastern nerd, but the 2016 season, we go up, we host Central Arkansas. It's that like 2:30, 3 o'clock kick, and it was basically for who was going to be in the driver's seat for the conference. And I remember there was like 60 people there.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
I know exactly what game you're talking about.
It was just like, how, like, man, like this is the biggest game at that time, really, probably the third biggest game ever. And there's like 60 people there. And to go from that to now, we've always got a good crowd. It may not always be packed out, but we've always got a really good crowd. It speaks to the job that, everyone is done. First of all, the athletes, but then also behind the scenes people, especially marketing. It was not what it is now.
Real quick for you, I mean, I know you cover all the sports. We all love all the sports, but do you think you'd be as engaged with the Lions and athletics in the university if there wasn't football, like a student in 1995 might have had to deal with?
That's a great question. I don't know if I wind up going there, honestly. Not because, that's a great question. I think it's hard to feel that sense of pride. I wonder if a student at UNO is able to, because I know you guys know them, you guys see them. There are some diehard UNO fans, but I don't know if,
yeah, but they're all old.
Right.
Good point.
Yeah. I don't know if there's, that's tough. Yeah. I don't know if I want to go into Southeastern. I really don't, if without football. Not that I was like, I got to go to the FCS powerhouse Southeastern, but just as a kid who loves sports, I don't know. That's a great question.
What were your choices coming out of high school?
This was it, man. This was it. I never even toured. But Rick Satoon came by when I was interning in high school, and we toured the Southeastern channel, and I probably saw Alan doing ESPN Plus stuff. I was like, that's the coolest thing in the world. And now everything's ESPN Plus, which is so cool for all the students. If there are any students listening, man, if you're not involved and you want to just go say hi. Go to the university center and say hi. Go hold a camera. Like, go do something. Go get involved. It's so cool what the kids are able to do.
I told Steve Zafuto about 2 weeks ago. I said I got to get into that archive because
dude,
there's some stuff
there's some gold in there. There's some gold.
We tried to make like these at Sports Center commercials, and I remember Alan read the what'd you do, the states or something like that. It was just
yeah, we did all kinds of stuff.
I gotta find that.
Alan's like, no, we're not gonna.
Yeah. I mean, I used to try to be like Keith Olbermann and like throw my in Sports Center. He just throw my papers all over the place at the end. We're just trying to be creative, and I think you bring that light to not only what you did at Southeastern Channel, but like you're bringing that to like nighttime television in Shreveport and Knoxville.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to be somebody that I would want to watch. But if I went to a school, and even in the professional world, if I had people telling me, "Nah, we got to tone it down," if I was a freshman in college and I had people telling me that, I wouldn't be who I am. None of you guys would be who you are. And that's what I think makes it so special. Everybody's allowed to be who they want to be, if you go into communications there, and I'm sure it's the same way with other majors, at Southeastern. But without that, I'm not doing this goofy stuff that people laugh at. I'm thinking I'm not allowed to, so it's a huge blessing,
Yeah, well, I mean, with the communication department of Southeastern is about to explode. I mean, you know what the channel's doing; they're about to build a there, and then Damon Sunday has just taken over KSLU, so that is going to just
that's fantastic.
another
I
level.
need to reach out to him. That's great.
That's going to shoot for the moon. Well, John, we really appreciate your time. It's been fun. We'll hope to get you on here again before it's all said and done.
Hey, Robbie, before you let John go, I want to tell you one thing. Hey, dude, listen, man, we've been watching from afar. Keep going, man, because listen, we're all rooting for you, and we have a little private group text, and sometimes we'll like send your stuff in it and be like, man, this guy's gonna be on ESPN. I mean, dude, like, keep going. We're behind you, man. We're not experts by any means, but you make us smile and listen. I think you're doing it the right way. So, dude, like, again, we're all behind you, man, and we really appreciate your time and what you do for Southeastern. But we're big Johnny Southeastern fans.
Man, I can't tell you how much that means to me, how much you guys mean to me, and again, it goes back. I keep dwelling on it. Everybody and you guys. You guys always treated me right, man. You guys were always good to me, and even as a kid, because I first met y'all when I was 18 years old, and y'all never big timed me. Y'all never said, "Oh, well, we're doing, we're the ones calling the games," blah blah blah, and that means a ton. And I can't thank y'all enough, because when I was a kid, man, I was looking up to you guys. I said, I want to be doing what they're doing, and so, man, it means a ton. So happy you guys had me on, and looking forward to it next time. Thank you guys so much.
Hey,
Scott Van Pelt will retire one day, so you can go try to get that.
Hey, real quick, Johnny, any chance you take a day off and sneak into the UC when LSU comes to town, take on Ayla?
Man, that's a great question. We'll see on that. But I'm just saying, it's gonna be a heck of a night. When we take down the Tigers.
Line up.
Yeah. Well, John Satori, he's formerly of KTAL in Shreveport and now works with WVLT in Knoxville. You can find his work on Twitter and all over the internet, and he also hosts the State of Southeastern podcast. You can find that anywhere you're looking, via Twitter, Instagram, or whatever. So, John, thanks for your time tonight. I know you'll be watching this Saturday night from afar as we take on Houston Christian. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll have you back on again. Best of luck, and cheers, man. Thank you, man.
All right, guys. Thanks. Line up.
All right.
Line up.
Those interviews with our guests are brought to you each week by Gateway Ford in Ponchatoula. You can check out their inventory at gatewayford.net, and don't forget Gateway gives the deal. Well, guys, that was about as. I mean, Dr. Erdman was great.
We love that guy.
Johnny can come on every week, as far as I know.
We've had some great guests.
I meant to ask you. I don't even know if he likes to be called Johnny. He'll always be known to me.
He'll always
Johnny
be known as that. Yeah, I mean, he is just incredible with what he's just. Some people just have it, and like, look, I mean, I thought I was pretty good at the TV stuff, but he's way better than I was, and he just has that personality and charisma. But I think the thing that stands out to me is like, that's a kid. I call him a kid. He's a grown man now, but that's a person that, like, and there's many more of them, right? I mean, there may be more in different schools, but like for us, there are kids and there are adults now that are all in on the Lions because of their experience on campus. And it's on campus. When I say, it's not about going to class or going to the Union, all those great memories that come from that, but it's Lion Saturdays, it's baseball weekends in the spring, it's Jam the Jungle. I remember that was the old thing back in the day in basketball, the big night. That's what it's about. You might say, oh, you're biased because you're a big athletics guy. Like, there's people in the biology department and communications department where I used to study kinesiology that are changing people's lives every day at Southeastern, and they're doing things that are trying to better the world. I mean, I'm not against that, but when it comes to the athletics of of here or Northwestern or Eastern Washington or Albany or um, uh, Duquesne, wherever it is, that is what it's all about. And that's why I'm such a heavy believer in athletics and supporting it. And I'm not a rich man, but I do what I can as best I can to help this school. And I think that John is a direct. I think we all are, but I think John's just that he represents so many people. I think in that age group, in that 22 to 27 age group that or here. I mean, think about this. I mean, look, me, Mark, and Alan have driven a lot of games where we were just bad.
Mostly me,
right?
but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, Mark always drove and I always slept, and Alan
Mark's
kept
retired from driving. He won't drive anymore.
That's right.
I slept. Alan kept Mark up, and Trevor Bergeron. I got to give Trevor a shout out. He kept Mark up a couple of nights when I fell asleep. But like we went to some bad games. But like for John and there's many others, I know Dylan.
They haven't seen the bad.
They haven't seen the bad, right? You're like, man, like 2015, that was just a really bad year. 2018, that was an awful year. I'm like, well, that's not that bad compared to what we used to see. But like, it's kind of like kids. I mean, I reference it, and I know I'm going on here, guys. I'll give you the floor, but like, I reference it to like, imagine if you're a child that was born in 1995, and you kind of, because in 2000 when Jim Haslett took over the Saints. Yeah, it wasn't as good as when Sean Payton was here, but it was way better than it was, Mark, right? In the 80s and 90s. Like, imagine if you're
went to the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, you were kind of in it all the time. Like, you don't know bad Saints football if you were born in 95 and started following the Saints in 2000. You just don't know it, right? It's kind of the same thing for these students that got here as freshmen in, like, 2012, 2013. It's different, and that's what grabs people and gets them to come back.
Well, I've been here in Louisiana since 1978, so I've seen a lot of bad everything because it's all ebbed and flowed and that sort of thing. But, the last 20 years, 23, 24 years in this part of the world, we have seen some things we never thought we would see. You've seen Saints win a Super Bowl. You've seen LSU, if you're an LSU fan, national championships. You've seen Southeastern bring football back. We're all Lions and make the playoffs. And at one point, I know we were doing broadcasts. We weren't even sure we'd ever make a playoff game. I mean, it was that dire for a while.
Hey, Mark, listen, I remember the first time, like in 2013, when we were really good for the first time, we didn't even know how the playoffs worked.
We didn't know how it worked.
Been doing this. Yeah. I had been doing this for the all since 2008. So we talk about 6 seasons. I didn't even know how the playoffs worked.
Well, the best was, because of the playoff rules, you have to play it down the middle when you're at home. And Paul Gerard, who is the greatest, as a PA, he's trying to tone it down when we score touchdowns. I mean, we were trying to play by the book.
That's a guess one night. We might.
Oh yeah, we got to get Paul Gerard on. But no, we're trying to play it by the book because we've never been in the playoffs. Nobody else who's been many times ever follows any rule by the NCAA. And of course, the last couple of times we've hosted, it's a little bit more lax now. But that just goes to show you, we're neophytes when it came to the playoffs back then. But but I've seen it all, and there's people way older than me that have seen, so many ups and downs and peaks and valleys of Southeastern athletics, and from the NAIA ranks to D2 to Division I AA to dropping football. There are some, and the reason we do this podcast, talking about Johnny Sartori, Johnny Southeastern, we'll call him John. He has that passion. He's younger. He's that part of that fan base that knows the new. But we do this podcast not only for him, but for those who came before, way before, who are still around. That there is no media. We're the media. We've talked about that. There is no working media that covers Southeastern on a daily basis. Yeah, get a little bit out of Baton Rouge, but there's no newspaper anymore. And
we miss John Lentz.
We miss John, exactly. And again, we miss tough questions, because sometimes fans want to know, because we get bombarded. I know you do, Alan. Yeah. You do, Robbie. Our texts get blown up, our DMs, what's going on? When things don't go well, there's nobody around that is going to ask.
We miss Rob DeArmond.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we don't do it, nobody's going to do it. So, not to get on a soapbox, but he talked about why we do this podcast and guys like Johnny Sartori, but there are more John Sartoris out there, and we got to get those guys out and get them involved.
Well, let's talk about the game.
Yeah, let's talk about the game. We got some time.
Yeah. So Lions obviously a tough one last week at Eastern Washington. Alan, I don't know how we went this far without congratulating you and your wife Elizabeth on the birth of your
Yes.
third child.
Yeah.
Collins Gregory Waddell came into the world almost about a week, right, on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I know that went by pretty fast for you. I know you were watching from afar on Saturday from back here in Hammond as I was. But Mark, you were there.
I haven't missed a game in a while. You know, it was
Yeah.
obviously it was a big week for my family that I couldn't get on that plane trip, but part of me wanted to be up there on the red turf. This was one I had kind of circled. What's the odds I'll ever get back up there again, Mark? I know it was a cool experience going up there.
Well, it was. First of all, the flight went great. All that was great. And I would tell you, a lot of times you see games on TV of some of these, Fargo Dome and South Dakota State, and some of these marquee places, the blue bloods, so to speak. And when you get there, it's a little bit different. Sometimes it's not what you imagine. TV doesn't do it justice or whatever. And you get there, and just things are a little bit different than you imagine. When I tell you, Roos Field in Cheney, Washington, was exactly like I imagined it would be, to a T. It's exactly like you think it would be. It's not probably it's kind of you got a track around the stadium. It's not a great stadium per se, but it's a great atmosphere. We drive in, there's cars lined up down the highway with tailgates. It wasn't a huge crowd, but it was engaged. It was packed. They have a good environment, a good atmosphere, and I know they were looking forward to Southeastern coming into play, and they felt like they had something to prove. But as far as the game goes, it's a game I feel like Southeastern had a chance to win. Statistically, I know a lot of folks look at the stats and say they doubled us up in stats or whatever, but the bottom, they had 92 snaps. And I thought defensively, we played that thing about as well as we could, considering how quick they ran their offense. Bottom line is, our offense didn't reciprocate. I don't know how many 3-and-outs we had, but you can't.
4.
Yeah, we had 4 3-and-outs. You cannot, in the day and age of this, the way the clock runs now after first downs, you can't have 1 3-and-out, especially against a team like that, and expect to have a chance to win. But we had 4 leads in the ball game. We had it teed up late with a chance of 1:34 left and 2 timeouts to go win the game, and couldn't get it done. I know we'll talk more about that, but great trip, great atmosphere. Everything was cracked up to be. We just came up short.
And the Eagles will return the trip to Hammond next year, as we talked to John about earlier, into 2024. So didn't get to see the Eagles in person. Couldn't make the trip to Cheney this past weekend. They'll be in Hammond in 2024. Alan, I know you spoke to Coach Selfo last night on the radio show. Your thoughts, coming out.
Yeah, look, listen, talked to obviously our show last night with Coach Selfo. I mean, he was disappointed that we, with 4 minutes left or 5 minutes left, we had the lead, fourth quarter. He had 2 opportunities to win the game. You either get a stop on defense, win the game, or you get the ball back with a minute and a half, go down and score and win the game. We didn't do that. We've seen this program make winning plays, over the last 5 years in those type of situations. It didn't happen on this trip. And it's disappointing. And look, I know if this was a game that if you look at the stats, it looked like we got killed. I mean, like it was like totally lopsided in stats, but that's why the stats doesn't really always tell. I thought our defense, I thought the game plan was, let them move it kind of between the 20s, don't get anything over your head, and then buckle down in the red zone. And I thought we did that a lot. We blocked a field goal in this game. We stopped them on 4th down. We had a big interception that gave us a short field. We had a big kickoff return that led to a short field. So sometimes their stats are misleading.
A
but
huge
the bottom
punt by
line
Austin to flip the field.
Yeah, but the bottom line is this program has hung its hat on offensive football in the Coach Selfo era. And we've always said we got to be better on defense. I think we are better on defense. But right now, through 3 weeks, now you got 2 FBS games, and if you didn't see, South Alabama was really good. They went to Oklahoma State and smoked them this past Saturday. But now this was an opportunity against an FCS opponent, a playoff-like team on the road. Our offense is not good enough right now. Let's just call it like it is. I mean, it's not the standard that we're used to. Now, does that mean in 3 weeks it's going to be the same? No. It might be better this week. But through these first 3 weeks, it hasn't been good enough.
Where does
and
that
a lot
start?
Of talk. Go ahead.
Where does it start? Let's talk about.
I'm going right there, Mark, because here's the deal. When you talk about offense, Coach Selfo has said multiple times, a lot of these guys have not played in the position they are starting at. Okay. But it starts at the quarterback position. We've had incredible quarterback play. You think back to Chase and Virgil, Cole Kelly, Cephas, the way Eli played a year ago. right now, it seems like our staff has handed the keys to Zachary Clement, and Eli's playing some. He had a good drive in this game, went down for a touchdown. Zach had some nice drives as well, running the football, creating with his legs, and had the big touchdown pass to Jacob Logan. I thought his best throw of the day was the 2-point conversion to Darius Lewis. But the question with him when he came here from Northwestern was he does have a tendency to turn the ball over. And at the end of the game, he turned the ball over. And we cannot do that if we're going to beat really good teams, especially on the road. So, that's where it's at. We got to be better on offense, and it's got to start better with the quarterback position. Our quarterback play at this point has not been what we're used to here at Hammond.
You talk about the quarterback position. Eli Sawyer last year, he split time with Cephas Johnson and put some skins on the wall. Here's a guy that threw for 1,600 yards, splitting time, 11 touchdowns, just 1 interception. That was a off-the-bench deal and 3 throws at McNeese. But any time that he has ever had extended playing time, he's protected the football. He's pushed it down the field. I know against that UIW game he came in, he got beat up. I mean, I think he was sacked 5 times coming off the bench for Cephas, who got hurt in that game and won that football game. So he's shown that he can do it. Where do you think he fits in? I mean, right now I know we talked about Zachary Clement, but it just seems to me for this offense to run, that's a guy that's gotten it done in the past. He's proven it.
Yeah, I know. I'm with you, Mark. Look, he's played well. He played well a year ago, and I think
he's played well this year.
Yeah, and look, I think
he hasn't had many chances. Yeah,
I think most of us assumed that he was going to just be the starter. I mean, I think most of us assumed that going into camp and going into the year, and it hasn't worked out that way. So, look, Coach Selfo and Coach Stevens, listen, they're great offensive minds. They've been incredible evaluators of what they're doing, but they're seeing something different at this point, and we have to see how that plays out, because. And again, I'm not at practice every day. I know, Mark, you go a lot.
Been 80% of them. 80%.
I'm not at the meetings. I'm not seeing that every day. But right now, if we're gonna have a good football team, because I think we have a good football team, and you look at it and say, oh, we're 0-3, but if we're gonna have a good football team, we got to get better quarterback play.
I guess the only question I had about the game was we kind of had heard we think we want to play 2 quarterbacks. We feel like Zach has a lot of athletic ability and can do a lot for us, which, hey, I've seen that. I think there's a lot of things he can add to this team that can help it. But we feel like Eli's a stronger passer. So when you got 140 to go, and you got to go down and score a touchdown, why is he not in the game in that point? That was my really only big question. Why is a guy who has a turnover tendency at Northwestern, and then is not the better passer? I mean, like you can play. I'm not trying to knock the player because I think he's a good player, but from what I've seen, he's not a better passer than Eli Sawyer. It's just not. It's not happening.
Well,
in my opinion, he's not.
No, he's just not.
And in my opinion, that was my only question. Like, why is this kid going in that 2-minute drill when I've seen Eli run the 2-minute drill? Like I saw Eli go down the field against a look. That's not a look. Let me tell you something. When you look back, that's the thing. I think we're hitting the oh, you scored 29 points, but I think I got a lot of respect for Eastern Washington. But when you look back in 6 to 8 weeks
scored
from
40
now,
points on them.
well, yeah, if you look back, I would venture a strong guess. If we look back in 6 to 8 weeks from now, you're going to find out that their defense is not very good, and we should have done more against them than we did. And I think that's just because of, we were really inconsistent on first down. I thought we had some plays that were just kind of weird, and all of a sudden we just kind of go negative, and then we're kind of put in a bad spot.
I agree, but we were really bad on third down. And that goes back to being able to throw the football and being accurate with the football. You got to be able to make some tight throws. You just think back of when we've had this thing rolling. When it was 3rd and 5 and less, we were automatic. Getting the first down because we run good concepts and get guys open, but you have to be accurate with the ball and put it on them.
And you got to be good on first down. You got to be ahead in the chains. I know I think back to the second possession of the game. We walk the ball right down the field, get a kickoff, go right in and score. Zach Clement led that drive, and we get in the end zone, we score. Then they go down and score. It's like a 16-play drive. They tie things up. We get the football back. First play, we try to run run in the line of scrimmage, flea flicker back to the quarterback. He hangs him up to dry, he gets sacked. We lose 7. We're backed up in our own end zone, and we got to go 3 and out. We punt. They go on another long drive. I think they either kicked the field goal or we held them, I think, maybe on downs. But you had that particular drive, and then right before the half, it's like, listen, 2 minutes before the half, we got the football, and we go 3 and out, and they get the football back. I think they had 2 timeouts, about a minute and a half left. They walk it down, score with 13 seconds. So I think not being able to pick up a first down and those 3 and outs, if you just get 1 or 2 per half, they're probably sitting on about 100.
You can't waste possessions.
Correct. They're sitting on about 100, 150 yards less on offense, and they're probably scoring somewhere in the 20s. And this is a game that's right there to win. So, I think we talk about the defense gave up 500 yards and 40 points. Well, they only gave up 33 points, but you can't go 3 and out. And I'll just tell you, I've done the stats, I've run the numbers. We have had 12 3 and outs through 3 games. All right. We had 11 all regular season 2 years ago, 3 and outs. I think last year we were into the 5th game of the season before we got to 11 or 12 3 and outs. So that's got to get corrected. I think it starts on first down. I think there's got to be some consistency at the quarterback position and some continuity and some leadership. And I think that's where it starts.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. And not to sound harsh, but like Zach Clements got to prove it to us and to me. Like, he hasn't proven it yet. And so he's going to get his chance, and I'm going to give him every chance in the world to do that. But like I think Mark said earlier, Eli's got skins. Eli's shown he can do it for us. We've seen it, right? I think the word coming out of the football program after the playoff game was like, hey, man, if Eli was hurt for the Stanford game last year, he couldn't play, right?
If Eli
and the word was like, well, I'm saying that the word was like, man, if we would have had Eli and been able to throw the ball a little bit more, because Cephas was a good thrower, but he wasn't as good as Eli. That's what we were being told. We would have blown Stanford out of the stadium that day, but we didn't have him. So
if
like
Eli Sawyer's not at Southeastern last year, this team doesn't make the playoffs. I mean, I think that's
fact.
A fact.
I think that's true.
I mean, he won the biggest game we had to win last year. He basically played most of the Nichols game. Cephas was banged up all year, had that shoulder. South Alabama. Jacksonville State, Northwestern State. He had to go in and carry the load. And
Cephas came to play, and
Cephas came to play in
Cephas came to play in the McNeese game.
Mm-hmm.
He could not play against Commerce, which we did lose, but he came to play in the McNeese game. He had some nice plays against Commerce. He played great against Jacksonville State, and so did Eli. So, I mean, both quarterbacks, it was just a great compliment, and we haven't had that compliment. It's just kind of like it's almost like
there's been no flow.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's almost like, remember the old delis? Oh. You go to a grocery store and you pull your tab and say, like, well, number 4's up, like number 5's up. That's what it's been. It's like, your turn.
We're at the games, and we literally every possession are looking in the huddle to see who's going in because there's no flow.
And that affects your line. That affects your everybody. So
we've played 2 quarterbacks since Frank Selfo's been here. We have. Well, maybe not the first year Chasen was
not
here,
the first year.
The first year, but
we played Lorenzo. Lorenzo played some
a little bit more. It was more Wildcat, but here's what I'm talking about. There was a discernible difference in the styles of play. Chasen Virgil, Cole Kelly, did throw 90 passes, basically came off the bench and won the Central Arkansas game. Kind of gave us a glimpse of what he was going to be in the future. But he got here late. He was behind in the offense. He was basically used as a short down quarterback sneak, Wildcat type quarterback. And we turned him loose some, and he had a great year. Okay, but that's how he was used. Chasen Virgil was a starter. You knew that going in. He's your starter. He's your guy. He's going to get the bulk of the snaps. He's going to get the bulk of the throws off. The following year, it's Cole. Cephas comes in. It's Cole Kelly. Cole Kelly won a job. Cephas comes in. He's the Wildcat, using wide receiver, but his role was defined. Same thing in 2021. Last year, Cephas is your starter. He's your defined starter. He got hurt, allowed Eli to rise and get some more throws off, but you kind of developed a tandem. You kind of knew how to use them. We need to throw the ball here. Eli goes in. And Cephas could throw it as well, but Cephas was going to be that guy. If you needed ball control, run the football. There was a discernible definition between the 2 quarterbacks. We don't really see that. Yeah, Zach's a little better runner than Eli doesn't run, but Zach can run the football. But that's about it. Honestly, to me, it's I don't know where that big advantage is. You understand what I'm saying? It's a little tough to see.
I think it's one of the things that I get asked a lot, and I don't really know the answer. And like I said, I'm rooting for this kid, whoever the
We
quarter.
all
I don't
are.
care who plays.
We want to win.
I don't
We
care
don't
if
care
it's
who
I
it
don't
is.
care if it's the man in the moon or if it's Allen or me. I just want to win. I want someone to go win games. So if Zach Clement carries us to the promised land, I'll be right there, with my
Hallelujah.
hand holding him up and carrying him off the field with a conference title. Or if it's Eli Sawyer, it doesn't matter. But I think people have asked me, like, we saw, again, he's got to prove it to the team and us and the coaches that he can do it, and he's going to be given that chance. And he played at Northwestern. He had some ups and downs, and he's gonna have another chance here this year. And hopefully this week against Houston Christian, it gets going in the right direction for the entire offense. And we'll see what that looks like. And we'll kind of jump to the Huskies real quick. We're kind of running out of time, but Mark, real quick, this is a different Husky team. The first year we're seeing a new head coach. They finally got rid of Vic Shealy, who had been there since the program started. It was in its infancy. No football to him over all these years, and they gave him a lot of time. But look, you and I and Alan have all been to this place. It ain't easy to win at Houston Christian. It's just not. You talk about buy-in. To me, there's no buy-in. It's just like, hey, let's field a team. So the new head coach, Mark, you can talk about him. He's got a tough battle, and this is a team that's really struggling right now, I think.
Well, it's a team. I'll be honest with you, Rob. I hadn't spent a whole lot of time on them. To be honest, is Braxton Harris is a new head coach who comes in his first year, and he's trying to overhaul the roster, and I think he's going to do a good job there because it is a place. And I know the facilities aren't great. You got CVS, right behind the visitor stands. Supposedly that's eventually going to get knocked down. They're going to be able to build
stands, not behind any stands,
but you're eventually going to be able to build
behind a fence.
Yeah, behind a fence. But I think eventually
Patrick Netherton, our good friend from Northwestern State Radio, used to always say, I can hear the people get the prescription standing on the sidelines. But anyways, go ahead.
But he's done a good job coming in, trying to reestablish a culture there. Of course, Vic Shealy was the only head coach they've ever had in football, so everything's new for them as far as a coaching change. But he comes from Campbell University, where they have a lot of NIL money. That's a program that has spent a lot of money in their new program as well. So he has a template of how to do it. And Houston's a town that, he can win there. Look at what UIW has done in San Antonio. Well, you can do that and more in Houston with the right investment, you get the right NIL, the right backing. There's no doubt you can win big in Houston just because there's so many players right there to choose from, but they're not there yet. And this is a team that,
yeah. I mean, if they knock down where it's located, the campus is pretty nice, I think. Yeah. It's right in the middle of town. Like, if they knock down the CVS, they don't have a track around their football field, if they put like, $1 million into that place outside of obviously what it takes to buy the CVS out, right, or get rid of that building, it could be a pretty significant place where they could really get it going.
Let's just talk about where this game falls on the schedule. Okay. We need this game bad. We're going to be favored probably by a few touchdowns in this one. We should win this game pretty big. Let's just call it like it is. Now, it doesn't mean we are. No, we got to play well. And look, they got a quarterback, Colby Suits, that played here. That came here to try to be the quarterback, got beat out and left. He tried to beat Cephas out, couldn't do it. He went to Houston Christian, sat out over there. So he's gonna come in here with a chip on his shoulder. But ultimately, our season, since we lost that Eastern Washington game, our season, the margin for error gets very, very small. And, there's only 8 games left in this thing. We need to win Saturday, and then you got a huge game against Tarleton next week. So hopefully we can use this almost as a get-right game. And then you go to the biggest game of your year on the road at UIW. So this is a very, very important game on Saturday.
Real quick, Mark, I say it like the Southland Conference is weak. They're not good.
Very.
Okay?
No,
it's about as bad as it's ever been. It's bad. If we lose to UIW and they run the table, which I think UIW is not as good as they were last year, but they're still a really, really good football team. The winner of Southeastern UIW is probably going to run the table in the rest of the league, I think, unless something weird happens or some injury. If we beat Tarleton and lose to UIW, I don't think we get in at 7-4. I just don't.
Well, it depends on what Tarleton does the rest of the year.
We need a lot of help.
If Tarleton goes on and wins the UAC, I think we do get in. I think it's 7-4.
Because I think Eastern Washington's going to be like 6-5.
Yeah,
when it's all
I don't know,
done.
Rob. I think Eastern Washington's
No,
pretty
Eastern
good. They have a brutal
Washington.
schedule.
I will tell you,
They got a brutal schedule.
Look, I saw Eastern Washington. I felt like we should have scored more points.
That's a good offense.
They're a very good offense. Now they're very similar to UIW. Probably not as talented as UIW was last year on defense. But I think offensively, their skill set. They don't have one wide receiver.
No, I think they're good. I don't think they're beating Idaho, Sacramento State, or Montana State.
Well, they're probably not going to beat.
So they're 6-5.
I think Montana State. I think they'll match up with. They got to play them on the road. Probably won't match up with Idaho, although that's a rivalry, so you never know. But I think they're a lot better than they were last year. I mean, this is a team.
Oh yeah. But they're not really getting any respect nationally. They beat us, and they're still.
But if they go 7-4,
Rob, if they go 6-5, they might get in.
If they go 7-4, I think they are.
That's true.
Coming in, I didn't think they would beat UC Davis next week, but now I do. I think they'll go handle UC Davis from what I've seen of both teams, and seeing them in person. And I think the Idaho game will be closer. They'll play them in 2 weeks than it was last year, and they'll play them at home, so that's gonna help. And then it's a matter of can they beat Sac State?
Take the over in that game.
Yeah.
If the Lions beat Tarleton and lose to UIW, you got to root hard for Lion fans. Need to root their brains out for Tarleton and Eastern Washington in the rest of the year.
But if Tarleton wins their league and you beat a team that wins this league, that's going to carry a lot of weight. And you got 7 Division I wins, and you got a close loss. And make no mistake, Eastern Washington, that's a close loss, even though it ended up being 11 points. That's a game that they're going to look at it and say, hey, they went and played them on the road, and you played South Alabama, who may, after seeing what they did to Oklahoma State, they may end up running the table. Who knows? But and an SEC loss. So I think, I don't think UIW, I mean, look, they're all must wins. We talked about that last week. But I do think if, you win the rest of the games, you're in. It doesn't matter. But
oh yeah,
if
you win out, you're in. If you win out, you're going to win the conference again.
But this team's got to get right. I mean, this week, Alan said it is a get right game, and you got to figure out who's going to run the show behind the center. Hey, if it's Zach Clement the rest of the way, obviously we're all pulling for him and want him to play as well as he possibly can. If it's Eli Sawyer, if it's both of them, they both got to play well. You can't have. Like I said, you can't be disjointed. You can't have, because we're already dealing with offensive linemen that are in and out. You got, John Allen moving from center to guard. You've got tackles rotating around. So they're trying to find some continuity. And the pass rush has bothered us more. Now the competition's been better early on. I think we'll see that get better. But, this week, it's kind of like that Central Connecticut game last year. Yep. It's a chance for you to really develop some continuity on offense. Dominate on defense and feel good about yourselves, going into Tarleton the next week.
You got 3 of the next 4 at home, and that's a big bonus after having the first 3 on the road. We'll get into I know a lot of people have, and John kind of did, but a lot of people have complained about this schedule. We'll talk about that more in a different podcast. But yeah, look, I mean, I think we're almost out of time today, but we got to figure it out offensively. And I think I'm not going to leave Strawberry Stadium Saturday night and be like, if we win 50-10, I'm not going to be like, wow, we figured it out, we're awesome. Like, no offense to Houston Christian, but they're not there yet, right? If
this program has different aspirations.
Correct. Watching Tarleton or watching the UIW game, those games, how we play in those games will make me feel, well, we're going to know, right? Because if you lose both those, it's over. That's just that's just
point blank.
If you don't beat Tarleton at home and you don't beat UIW the following week, you just
don't matter what happens.
You're playing just playing to have a winning record.
You're playing for the River Bell. That's basically all you have left. And trying, because look, I mean, 6-1 in the Southland, like, okay, that's good, but that's not where Alan said the aspirations are different, right?
This season's a little bit similar. If you look back to it, the way it's playing out is 2016. Southeastern went 7-4, didn't make the playoffs. You beat Nichols at the end. thought you might get an at-large. Just didn't have anything in between. The difference in this schedule and that schedule, because, you played Southern Utah on the road that year, lost that game. That was a game you lost. It was close, similar to this Eastern Washington game. But you didn't have Tarleton on that schedule. Now you have a Tarleton State that, now they got to go have a good year and finish out strong. They got off to a good start. Had a tough week this week against Texas Tech, but that's going to be a measuring stick. And but anyway, that's kind of how this season's playing out. It seems like.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening. It's been another great week 4 here. We'll be on next week. We'll put out our special guest next week, and we'll get ready for a massive football game against Tarleton in Strawberry Stadium. The Texans come to town for what should be we talked about it, a huge game. So, guys, thanks a lot. I want to thank John Sartori, a Lion alumni, and been great on television for many different networks and covers the Lions State of Southeastern podcast. So check that out. Thanks for being with us. I'm Robbie Rhodes for Alan Waddell and Mark Willoughby. And that's been it, guys. Thanks a lot for being with us. Have a good night.